And a very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101 on a Wednesday night. Welcome everyone down to our program tonight. Uh, Good evening to all of you. If you're joining us from whatever part of Guyana, if you're joining us from the wider Caribbean, in Suriname, French Guyana, welcome to Politics 101. Those of you joining us from North America and Canada and the United States of America, welcome to Politics 101, all of you. Those of you who join us from Europe, good night. Good night. Some of you are joining us from places where it's already past midnight. Good morning and welcome to Politics 101. Last night, of course, we had Itpadaji here going through the strategic plan they've put together and pushing back against the government, which tried to misrepresent the plan. And we want to thank all of you who stayed through that hour and a half. Professor Theo Gittins, of course, was here. He walked us through the plan, how the plan was put together. And of course, we promise next week to discuss the findings of the plan in more detail. And we've gotten a lot of responses from you in the audience. So we would like to thank you for the solidarity shown to Idpadaji last night. And of course, tonight, as I promised, we are going to revisit Mr. Ravi. Last week, we did a program and we analyzed and put in context what Mr. Dev was up to. And several of you, I've gotten over 20 requests to replay the video and to get more analysis on it. So, as I promised, we're going to do that tonight. So, buckle up as we unpack Mr. Dev's superior culture and his invitation to these people to come here and to spread their superior culture and to make money. That is what Mr. Dev was in India doing. As we said, someone had drawn to our attention a few years ago this address, and somewhere or the other it got lost, and somebody found it again. And this time, we are not going to allow it to get lost. We're going to deal with it. Welcome to Politics 101. And as usual, we want to thank you all for staying with us. We've got friends tonight. Lincoln Lewis is already backstage and ready to get into Mr. Dev's address. We expect Apostle London to join us at some point during the program. He's a busy man these days, and he, along with Simona Brooms and others, are keeping that Dharamlal issue alive. They have remained on the streets, and they continue to call our attention to that issue. The way in which the government has dealt with it, the way in which the law was made to be an ass. We saw the way in which the government manipulated the system. As I said this morning on another program, we may have gotten caught in the sense that we said we are going to allow the system to work. And the PPP showed us how to make the system not work. It means that we are at a critical point. You know, we always know that government and laws are there on paper, but you have to make them work. And we assume integrity on the part of those who hold the keys of power, that there is a social compact, a social contract, that the rule of law will be allowed to function. The assumption is that we want to be governed by the rule of law. And it's just that the PPP does not intend to govern via the rule of law. And that has become patently clear that under the PPP government, we are not equal before the law. It's equality before the law is the bedrock of any democratic process. In the United States Constitution is the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, and I always say it, along with the Bill of Rights, the 14th Amendment is perhaps the most important part of the American Constitution. It has two parts. The first part is the due process clause, that is, that each citizen is accorded due process, which includes presumption of innocence until proven guilty, not presumption that some of us are more equal. And that is why the second clause of that 14th Amendment of the American Constitution says all citizens, regardless of race, creed, all citizens have equality before the law, equal protection before the law. And that is settled. And the assumption is equality before the law, not inequality before the law. And what we have seen under the PPP government is inequality before the law. It means, therefore, that in order for us to move forward as a normal society, we have to find a way to get the present rulers away from power. They've corrupted our system. They've corrupted the Constitution. They've corrupted the government, governmental structures. They've corrupted the parliament. They've corrupted the executive branch. They've corrupted the judicial branch. As I said, the system assumes that those who hold the keys to power are committed to making the system work. Justice Thurgood Marshall always talked about a living constitution. And in order for a constitution to continue to live, people must have, those who are overseen, must have a commitment. Must have a commitment. I see Brother Nigel London is here, so both our guests are here with us. What we're going to do, as promised, we're going to play Mr. Dev comments. We're going to listen to it together, and then our guests are going to come in. So let's see Mr. Dev here and get going with him.
Namaskar, everyone. My predecessor, Raj from Suriname, has made my task much easier to represent Dr. Singh here because what he has told you about Suriname holds true for Guyana. But before I make that presentation on behalf of Dr. Singh, I want to challenge you, the Hindu businessmen in here from Bharat and from elsewhere. In Guyana, there are over half of the individuals in that country, the population, are of Indian descent. And of that, the majority of them, 45%, are Hindus. We went there in the 19th century. My great grandfather left uh, Gaia in 1888. And in the 4 or 5 generations since, we have established ourselves there. So between Trinidad in the Caribbean, Guyana, and Suriname in South America, we have about 2 million people of Indian descent, of which over half are Hindus. Now, I want to challenge you in this way that there have been three waves of Hindus historically. The first wave was probably in the year from the year 1000 onwards, and they went east. And that is how our civilization, our Hindu civilization, spread to what we call now Southeast Asia through Cambodia, Thailand, East Indies. And who were those individuals that spread our civilization? They were business people. They were businessmen, possibly businesswomen, who went east and they made tremendous profits. But in doing so, they also held themselves out as Hindus, practiced their business as Hindus, did not go out and proselytize, but they changed those people, not by converting them, but by showing them how to be part of a superior culture. The second wave was to countries like Suriname, Fiji, South Africa, and elsewhere in the 19th century. And then, of course, in this last century, from 1965 to the West, to America, and in UK. Myself, as a fourth-generation Indian from Guyana, went to the United States and went into business there, into law and what have you. But the point is, what I want to expose you to, that you have a golden opportunity that not many countries, that not many businesses that want to expand, that want to grow, that want to spread have. You have an opportunity to have your cake and eat it too. You have an opportunity to make money, but also to spread this great civilizational ethos that we have called Hindutva. And that is what we should think. We make money just like our first wave to East Asia, but you can also make money and be yourself. Because in these countries in the Caribbean, you have Hindus who are very strong Hindus. We have been able to have, as my brother Raj says, Diwali and Phagwa Holi are national holidays. The rest of the population celebrate them. We did not have to proselytize, but by our faith and our practice and our mores, we have able to show them that, our civilization also matters. So with business, I want to challenge you. In the text that we took to the Caribbean was the Ramcharitmanas of Baba Tulsidas. And Hanuman Swami, that great devotee of Sri Ram, he had to be reminded. Remember this, when he was on his way to Sri Lanka, he had to be reminded by Janwant as to who he was. You are Pavanaputra, you are the son of the wind god. And I want to remind you, you are the sons of those who once took over Southeast Asia, not by the force and not by the sword, but by your business acumen and by being Hindus. So I come now to some basic information, which basically will be a recapitulation of what Raj says, which is that Guyana presents tremendous opportunities. And the first one is, you might not think so, but you have to begin to think strategically. India is going to compete with China. And strategically, your fight in the next century, and you have to think for the next century, will be to secure natural resources, to secure resources so India can develop. And here again is where Guyana comes in. Take, for example, mining. The Chinese have come to Guyana, and Bosai, which is the largest aluminium producer in the world, they have taken over. Guyana and Suriname together have some of the largest bauxite reserves in the world. Guyana has what is called refractory bauxite, which is the bauxite is made into blocks that you make kilns. So if you are to succeed in steel, you need access to refractory bauxite. It's a very high grade bauxite. Abrasives all use bauxite. There's tremendous opportunities in Guyana for bauxite mining. And all you do, you mine the bauxite and you calcine it, and then, like the Chinese do, they ship it to China and you make it into aluminum ingots, and you can do it in all your countries. Guyana is wide open. There are huge bauxite reserves that have not been tapped. It is the richest bauxite, and I will put a plug in for Suriname. It's the same ridge, it runs through our two countries. The richest in terms of percentage of aluminum oxide in the bauxite. So that's open. Gold. Gold is not just one for jewelry, as you know, in terms of communication technology and what have you. Gold transmits electricity rather most efficiently and doesn't corrode. So that's going to be a use of gold. Guyana produces, is one of the largest producers now. Last year was $1 billion of gold produced. And who are producing the gold? Right now, a new mine from Australia is coming in there. Now, here you have individuals in Guyana who are Hindus who would welcome you. When you go there, you feel you are part of India. And yet, the Indian business people do not come. The Chinese are coming in terms of agriculture. Think strategically. India is developing. China has already moved so much of its rural population to urban centers. You will do the same. Who will produce your food? Where is the land for it? Think of food security. Now, this is not any great technological advance. This year, we are producing 620,000 tons of rice, out of which we are such a small population, not even a million, we will export 500,000 tons of rice. Guyana has the potential to export, to be the biggest exporter of rice along with Suriname in the world. We have that technology. Do what the Chinese are doing, you businessmen. When China invests, China takes Chinese. China takes Chinese to farm, whether in Africa or in Suriname. I went there and I was appalled last year. I go to vacation in Suriname. Suriname is a small country, 400,000, but there's already 10% of Chinese, over 40,000 Chinese. They're not just taking over the businesses, the small businesses, they are taking over the country. China is thinking strategically. I challenge you, the businessmen from India. This is not any great, I don't want you to think of things that you don't know, intricacies like stock markets and all that. Fine, that's for the developed countries. You'll make money, but you can make money just in farming alone. To take these farmers, for example, from Punjab that I hear about, that the land is running out, the water level has dropped, you can't have that. Guyana will welcome them. The Chinese are getting immigrant visas for their people. They're coming into Guyana already. I'm talking of hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland that you can cultivate. The D.Y. Patil Group is the first Indian company that has gone in. I think they've gotten 68,000 hectares of land. There is forestry. Guyana is 83,000 square miles, of which 80%, like Suriname, is forest. Thousands of species that you can manufacture into any conceivable thing, wooden furniture, so much of the kind of wood, value added. This is not any great technology. You don't have to reinvent anything. Just come down with your medium level technology and you can make real money because the markets are there. China has at least $5 billion targeted for investment in the region. Latin America is one of your largest growing markets. Brazil is a fast growing economy, a member of BRICS like India. We, Suriname and Guyana, sits right on top of Brazil. As we speak, the contracts have been signed to connect Brazil with Guyana and Suriname in terms of bridges, in terms of roads. That's a huge market that Indian business people can tap into. Because Brazil, while Brazil is developed, that development is in South Brazil. The northern Brazil, which touches our border, is there on the developed portions. But it has great opportunities for you to get involved in at this early stage. I will tell you this, that you can enter as business people, you can enter into various stages of a business cycle. But when you enter from the ground floor, when you enter as the initial individual in that sector, then you have the opportunity for the largest returns because the competition is so much less. And this is what Guyana offers you. And I want to exhort you to think about it. So, in terms of the actual investments, I would like to just talk a little bit from Dr. Singh's presentation that he just sent me some talking points here. We have talked about that there are tremendous amount of incentives for investors. Guyana has one shop stopping in terms of business. It's called Go Invest. And if you were to go on the web and just hit Go Invest Guyana, you will see all of the factors laid out there in terms of the fiscal incentives, in terms of all the other tax holidays and what have you that you can get to start your business in Guyana. There's accelerated depreciation for plant and machinery. If it's there's double taxation treaties with UK, Canada, and Kuwait, so you can have all of that. In terms of exports, once you add value to it, there's no taxes on your export. There's tax holidays, tremendous amount. Ecotourism is big with the developed north. Guyana and Suriname also has tremendous ecotourism potential that you can go there. But the largest is, I think, you kind of want to come back to it in agriculture and agro processing. Our climate is very similar to Kerala. All those spices that the Western world now thinks about, basic things like turmeric and those spices that you have one of the largest growing agricultural product in terms of value added, can grow there. Just think Kerala, and you will know what Guyana and Suriname is all about. The West talks about organic. These countries are untouched. 90% of them have never been touched, so there's no fertilizers there. So you can produce almost anything and market it at double the price as organic, and you are well on your way. You have your Hindu brothers and sisters in Guyana. We have still remained an agricultural people, a rural people. My people were from, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and they have retained their agricultural roots. You have in very few countries in that part of the world where you have farmers who are willing to go out there, who still see the earth as Dharti Mata, and we do puja to it, and we respect it, and we plow it, and we are very, very blessed when we reap it. And we want you to share in that. So those herbs and spices that are flooding the world now, you can get it there. Livestock and dairy products. The Brazilians have made $1 billion industry by clearing their rainforest and starting to produce livestock and dairy products here there. Aquaculture is big, is very huge potential for aquaculture. Tilapia, there's seafood. Now, the biggest thing, I want to basically leave this with you towards the end of my presentation. Again, think strategic. The former president of Guyana, Dr. Bharat Jagdeo, he has pioneered what we call sustainable development, low carbon development strategy. We are the first country in the world to have adopted a low carbon development strategy. We know the world is running out of fossil fuels, and all countries of the world will have to get on to a whole system of thinking, where are you going to get the energy from? Guyana has huge infrastructural programs that can generate energy where you can go into it. For example, hydropower. Guyana is known as the land of many waters. The Brazilians and the Chinese, we have just one small 140 megawatt plant is going up. The Chinese Development Bank is saying they want to fund it. They're going to put in 500 million. The rest will come out of some other banks. They have about $800 million. But the point is that they see returns because even though it's called the China Development Bank, they get a return of over 9%, better than most other, regular banking activities. So what you have to lobby your Indian government for, whether you do it privately, but also the Chinese government, they see good business opportunities, they lend the money because they have a guaranteed return, because it's the country that is backing it. There's public-private partnerships in all these infrastructural things. We are encouraging that. The Chinese right now are building a new airport in Guyana. In addition to the hydro plant, they're building a new airport. A small country like Suriname, $5 billion they've committed. Guyana, $5 billion. And they will bring their people there. The Chinese are thinking strategically, again, I say so. You already have your people there. You already have your Hindus there, and yet they are being neglected. So I want to say this that we are very proud that Narendra Modi ji is now Prime Minister of India. I first met him in 1993. I met him in 1993 when we went to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Vivekanandaji's uh, going to the West, Parliament of Religions in 1893. And we were in Washington, and Modi ji was there. He and I were in the same panel with Rajmata Scindia ji. And I must say, I will always remember this. Ashok Singhal ji pointed him out to me because Ashok ji had come to Guyana. And he said, that is a lion of Sangha. That is a lion. Narendra Modi ji, Narendra Bhai. And we have seen that lion starting to roar today, and we are very proud wherever we are. Narendra Bhai came to Trinidad, the World Hindu Conference in 2000. And again, we spoke about many of the same problems that we are speaking with now. But it was a different time and it was a different place. He came to Guyana briefly, where I hosted him and took him around. And the first thing he asked me, he says, I want you to show me what has our people done for this country in terms of sacrifice. And I took him to a monument where, as sugar workers, we had fought the British and died and spilled our blood. And there's a monument to these sugar workers who fought because they were being exploited by the British. And he saw this and he bowed to this monument and said, this now is your Punya Bhumi. Matri Bhumi may be India, but this is your land. And I want to say that unlike Nehru, who said that we of the diaspora are on our own, in his book, Discovery of India, he writes that. You are on your own. You have to do your own struggle. He didn't want to annoy the British or whoever he was thinking about. Narendra Modi ji said, this is your Punya Bhumi, and you have to struggle for it. I ask you, oh Hindus in this hall, to join us, to connect, and to become one. And you're doing it, and you will get your returns. I'm guaranteeing it. We are at the cusp of development. We are on the top of Brazil. You have a huge market. That whole market that we have access to is over $4.5 trillion. We have free trade with them. Because of our underdeveloped state, we have preferred access to the European market. From Guyana, you can ship duty-free to Europe. To America, we have the Caribbean Basin Initiative. With Brazil, there's a host of products you can ship duty-free. And you have the opportunity, if you don't want to come, to partner with local Hindu businessmen. And I was so proud that we will have this directory. We will be putting down our names. I am part of a group that not only owns media, that is in pharmaceuticals, and we can maybe partner. And you have the whole of that how many million people in South America to market. So I close with these remarks that we as a people have to look not only at our own interests, we have to look at our people's, our Hindu interest, because our Hindu interest is our own interest. I thank you and namaskar.
Yes. So you all heard it another time. We have to look after our interests, our Hindu interests. Sister Deborah says something here. This man is not a Guyanese. And I'm glad, Sister Deborah. Here's the story. They always tell Africans, don't be African, be Guyanese. But you hear the man is telling his people, be Hindus and look after your Hindu interests. And when people like myself and Pastor London and Lincoln Lewis tell you all, look after your African interests, they tell me we are racist. And some of you all, yourself, tell me we are racist. The man, they're telling you all are Guyanese. You all are not Africans. Don't worry, David Hines. Don't worry, Nigel London. And you're catching there, telling them they must look after their what? Hindu interests. And I'm glad, Deborah Cox, I glad you said this man is not a Guyanese. Guyana is a place for you to come and make money and to spread your civilization. God, you all get it. And so when I tell you all, look after your African interests, and you all, some of you all say, what David Hines is all about race. You all get it there. And understand why we are telling you all to, you all are Guyanese, but you all are Guyanese, you all are part of a Guyana of many ethnic groups. And each group is looking after its interests, except Africans. But I'm glad we're making some strides. Anyhow, I wanted to open up with that. But I got friends tonight, so it's not about me. Brother Nigel London, Brother Lincoln Lewis. No, I don't mean... let me start with you, brother Nigel. Before to youth here tonight, when you listen that presentation, and this is for you, Lincoln, after Brother Nigel. When you listen to that, what is your first gut response?
First of all, let me thank you, Dr. Hines, as always, for having me here to share this platform with you, and to, of course, Mr. Lewis and all of those who are viewing. Thank you for having me here. Honestly speaking, my first thought was, did Irfan Ali listen to this? Honestly. Because Irfan is a Muslim,
yes,
in a cloud of Hindus. And Irfan doesn't seem to understand his position yet. But I'm happy that Ravi Dev has made it clear to him. That was my thought initially. Did Irfan hear this? Because we have to understand the essence of what Ravi Dev has said and would have said then.
yes.
He did not speak to East Indian people. He spoke to Hindus. And that division that we see in Pakistan and India and all the rifts and the wars that they have, Ravi Dev is confirming and reaffirming Hindus that they are superior to every other being. And that culture must find its way in our society. Ravi Dev, as far as I'm aware, was never condemned by certain elements in Ghana, about which we'll speak shortly.
Thank you, my brother. Lincoln Lewis, your first response.
I had the opportunity of looking at this thing for three times before we chose here. Mm-hmm. But while I've recognized that it was in 2014, the realities in front of me have confirmed that there is a plan that has been conceptualized, developed, and is currently continuously being implemented to bring about what we call Hindu dominance. If you observe what this guy said, in his presentation, he spoke about the Hindus and the linkages between the Hindus in India, Asia, the Caribbean, and most Caribbean, South America, and more so North America, and so forth. We talk about a movement. Well, interestingly, what his focus is that the China is here, and the competition must be the competition that exists is one where China is ahead of India. China's presence in the region is ahead of India. And they need to bring the Indians on board, Indian government and so forth, all agencies, to compete with China. It is a question here where they're talking about Indian dominance as a nation.
Yes.
This brings me to the point in your opening statement and what has been going on in the society. When we say, some of us, like yourself, myself, and others, we say that we are African force, But because of our history, we were born here. So we are Guyanese second. There are people who tell us that we are not, or they said they are not Africans, and they say to us that we are not African. What is coming over here? It's a question of domination of not only a group, but nation and nation. Today we have what we call the African countries are rising up, holding hands together. I will want to see how it unfolds with India. But when he was making this statement, making this address, oil wasn't found as yet. So you can see the reason why out there now, since the oil has been here, the Chinese are there. There's India is here too. Is that these guys are doing? They are doing these things at the detriment of even us as African people. In his presentation, not one word that this country, when he said is 43%, approximately 43% of Hindus. What he has not done, he has not said to the audience or to the world that we have a sizable portion of Africans who are, or even Amerindians who live here. So what this man is doing is saying, this country belongs to us. Don't worry the rest of people. And let me show you how not is it devious these guys are. Look, this man speaks about Modi coming in, and he took Modi around, and Modi want to know where, if he can show him something where they represents the struggles of the people, the Indian people here. And he took him to Enmore, where the monument has been established. He had the decency to say that monument, at least he should have said. He said it represents the struggle against the British. But he never said at any point that Forbes Burnham, an African man, a leader who made it possible for them, for the erection of that. It tells you what we are up against. And we cannot take this thing lightly. We cannot take it lightly. I do not believe that we should be going out there to attack. There must be no program where we go there to attack East Indian, attack Hindus, or attack Muslims. We ought not to do that. But then we have to work. We have to understand what is taking place in this system. It is this, what is unfolding here represents or elucidate the attack that is now carried on the pathogen. Is that we don't want them, the other group, the African group, to be mobilized, to be organized, mobilized and galvanized. We're going to destroy them because this will give more space for the Hindu community to come in.
I want you to hold there, Lincoln, because we're going to come to those itemized things or those issues that you have itemized. We are coming to them. Hold for a minute. Brother Nigel, the man talks about a superior culture, not a great culture, a superior culture. I think that is instructive. I want to get your teeth into that, my brother, because I think that is right up your alley. And then I'll come to you, Lincoln, to address that issue of the superior culture. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Hans. I believe that is in his entire presentation. That's among the most damning thing you could have said, dangerous thing you could have said. And that's why I said that to this day, there's certain faces, including Bharat Jagdeo, Irfan Ali, and others who they may want to say this was said years ago. But at the end of the day, that statement still rings in the ears of Guyanese. Like Mr. Lewis, I listened to that broadcast, that clip thrice. And what kept jumping out, leaping at me was the superior culture. It therefore announces to every Guyanese that if you are not Hindu, you are inferior to anyone who's classified as the Hindu. That in any nation or being heard in any part of this world. And I'm happy that he also was caught speaking to Suriname, because we're seeing here that this man is propagating what the ERC should be condemning. He is saying that Hindus, the culture of Hinduism, is superior to that of what they would call Christianity and even Islam. So Ravi Dev is presenting to Guyana a notion, for those who hear it, that every Hindu, as you step out of your house, you must see yourself as being superior to your fellow Guyanese. And if there are two Hindus who believe that, we have a problem in this country. We have an issue if just two believe that, because they will seek to demonstrate and exhibit that behavior in the school system, in the business places, even in some instances, in religious circles. And that, Ravi Dev, I don't know if I could say it tonight, but I've always seen him as, the mildest way to put it is a dog, because of what he spews and would have spewed, and he did not face the necessary condemnation. Most importantly, he did not and has not faced the necessary reaction from the African community in this country, and we speak to that as well.
Yes, yes. Lincoln, the superior culture, the superior culture.
Let me just link it. This guy says that the people who migrated to other parts of Asia, they were businessmen and they were Hindus. He's saying that, look, he went on to say that it is because they were Hindus and the culture they embrace that caused them to be successful economically. And he's saying the same is applied in this region and in North America. What he was doing is the culture must be seen wider than just the Hinduism. It has to be seen within the context of our lived experiences. What this man is really doing is, look, he said to you, we did it before as Hindus. We must do it again. Even if it requires at the detriment of other communities, because the presentation that he has made makes not one iota about other communities that exist. And is in as what is what you call is exhortation to come to Guyana or to come to Suriname is one which says, come and join with the Hindus. Yes, come and join with Guyanese. And this reminds me of the 90s when they were talking about an agreement or a union between Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and Suriname. It was because you have a larger enclave of Hindus between the three countries. They had intended, the PPP government had intended to unite those three groups at the expense of keeping other groups out of the economic program. We will not be benefiting, which comes right back to what's taking place now. You check the group. Yeah. You check the group in the oil industry. Who criminate it off?
Yes, yes.
See who you are.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lincoln. We're coming to those items. We're coming. I want to say a couple of things because the professor in me cannot resist this. Those of us who know about the Protestant ethic by Max Weber, he talked about the Protestant ethic of capitalism, linking European Protestant ethic and capitalism. And then the Americans talk about manifest destiny.
Yeah.
That is what Ravi Dev is talking about here. The other thing before I go to my brother, I want to say is I always marvel that they call us racist.
Yeah.
Marvel that they call us racist. And I am yet to hear an African leader in Guyana talk about a superior African culture. We have people who fire off at their mouth. Some people do that. But even African leaders who fire off at their mouth don't say that. It cannot come naturally to us. Because we have had to fight racial supremacy all of our existence. And so it's no accident that that term superior don't come out of our mouth, because it doesn't percolate in our hearts. Oh lady Ganga, oh lady, she said, oh picnic, Congo, a high nation. High, not superior. The old lady in the village, Gangang. We have a Gangang in every village. How picnic? Congo, a high nation. Not superior. And Gangang never went to university. She never went to law school like Ravi Dev. But she knows the difference between high and supremacy. Oh, picnic, Congo, a high nation, never supreme and supremacy and superior. And I want to say to you all Africans, that's why I'm saying I'm so jealous of African culture. I don't want you all to get like Ravi Dev. I don't want you all to get like Ravi Dev. I want you all to believe that you all are a high nation, not a superior nation. Not a superior nation. Brother Nigel and Brother Lincoln, the man says to the people, come to Guyana, get your cake and eat it. Go, Brother Nigel. Come to Guyana, you get your cake and you eat it.
I am honestly wondering at that time whether Ravi Dev was honestly representing the interests of the PPP, honestly speaking. Because as
we seem to have lost Brother Nigel there.
I'm here.
There we go.
Yes, as Ms. Lewis is saying, what we're seeing now over the past, oh boy, what we're seeing is really an expression, a manifestation of that 2014 Hindu conference.
Yes,
yes. Come to Guyana, said he. And he began to highlight how much of this cake you can have. What's at stake if you come here? I did not miss when he spoke to a group, he said, who's here, enjoying 68,000 hectares of land.
Land!
Land.
Land!
So let's ask Barjagyo, who is the man who says his pen must be affixed to anything regarding land in this country. 68,000 hectares is 1.6 plus million acres of land. He said a group is here and they're already enjoying that benefit. The cake, in my view, is what we're seeing being cut and distributed all across this country. And they're having a field day with it. And again, I say, Ravi Dev was specific in saying, this cake is for Hindus.
Hindu.
Now, I must reverse and hop on what you said. We must pay attention to the fact that he spoke to, or people would say, even now they're saying, I'm sure, that we're racist. But when have we ever said that African Guyanese must be the ones who enjoy the cake? And nobody else must have it. When have we ever said that African Guyanese are superior to anybody else? When have we ever even remotely uttered such sentiments? And there's no one who I see who would have encountered Ravi. There are very few of them who would have said this man is unworthy of being in Guyana. Because I believe, I say again, that Ravi Dev was not speaking for himself, but he's speaking to Guyana, Suriname, and Trinidad, and an agenda that he knew existed.
Lincoln Lewis, do we now understand why they're throwing black people off lands while they're taking away our land? You heard it from Ravi Dev. Come and get your cake land, 83,000 square mile. Oh, this is a local land I got country. Come and get it. Do we now understand why they're throwing you off Kojo McPherson land? Do we understand now the nexus between the land grabbing of this government? Ravi Dev came back to Guyana in the late 1980s, and he did what the PPP was always doing under the bottom house, in the mosque and the temple. He gave an Indianist ideology. He's the ideologue of Indianism. You see, they're Christian Indians and they're Muslim Indians,
right,
but they all live in a Hinduized environment. Understand that? That is why he conflates India and
right,
Hinduism.
correct.
Lincoln Lewis, the man from Kingley.
Let me tell you this. He has not said anything that surprised me. I know the man. I've been following him. You remember 1997 when they had the what we call the post-election infiltration of the march and created riots in some degree of riots in Georgetown. Some people claim that they were beaten. When Ravi Dev was on Channel 6 and he taking down names, and he came out subsequently and he said how many 100 people were beaten, brutalized by the
people. And Lincoln, let's don't pass it. Indian people were beaten in Georgetown. Like black people, we should not go down the road. Indian people were beaten by black people.
Listen, David. This room every morning, let me make my point, man.
He was part of an organization called.
You know what?
Right.
You know what? I'll tell you something.
Yes.
There were people who pick up. It was not a scientific measurement, because black people to take up the phone to people and say, look here, we want to see this man, we testing him. See, right? And they call and say they were beaten. They will never be.
Yeah.
Ravi Dev is known to use skew data to justify marginalization of the Indian community, Indians in Guyana. He's known to do that. I know he has been doing it. What he has done now is to come out at a formal forum and to unclothe himself and say, look, I'm with my brothers and sisters here. This thing belongs to we. Guyana belongs to us. And what we should be doing, I inviting you now to come and join us in Guyana.
Yes, he said India is there in Guyana. You will get India when you come there.
Right?
He said that.
Well, yes. What I'm saying, so I was using the opportunity to tell you what man he has been, and the type of data that he uses to justify his point.
And that GIF report that he compiled was responded to by the Venerable A.U.C. Quayana, Black Man of Guyana, in a book called Guyana No Guilty Race. He said to Ravi Dev in that response, look, yes, Indians were beaten on the streets by Africans in January of 1998, but there were many Africans who rescued Indians from being beaten on that very day. And he took us back to our history, and he showed there were times when Indians beat black people, and there were times when black people beat Indians. And so therefore, there is no guilty race. All of us have sinned and come short. Quayana book, Guyana, no guilty race.
That was then. That was then. Who is guilty now? I am not guilty.
Yes, no.
You're not guilty. But I'm sure this here, what we see on the screen, what we see on YouTube here, who is guilty? We are not the persons who are pushing. You understand me? The mobilization of one race or one group to take opportunities in this country. What we have to do now is that we have to respond in a different way. The African community has to respond in a different way. I hope this will be a wake-up call for them. And we cannot allow ecology to be brutalized. We cannot allow them to continue to elect who must be or select who must be our leaders. We cannot allow it. This brings me to what is currently taking place. We have to fire back. We have to call on our community to mobilize and galvanize for the benefit of our community, because we are going to be left out. We are already put on the periphery, not only by Ravi Dev, but we are put on the periphery by the political operatives in the PPP government. We are thrown on the wayside. We have to stand up for something, or we will fall for anything. Yes, sir.
Brother London, the question of land, I want you to expand on that, because you were there in Linden when they were throwing Linden people off their lands, and then they moved to the East Bank, and now they've moved to other parts of the African Guyanese community. And listen to Dev there about the importance of land and how much land has already, at that time, that was 2014. Can we imagine how much land is now in the hands of this superior race that Mr. Dev was invited? Go ahead, my brother.
Thank you. And it's interesting that, and that's why I think these forums are so important, because I had an interview with a lady this morning. She's in Region 3, and she's of African descent, and she spoke to the fact that she has this farming community, the farm she works on, for 13 years. Guy Suko's land, she was, and of course, and there's a businessman, an Indian man, who is seeking to have her removed, using elements within housing and so on to force her off the land because it's by the river. And now he knows that if that's really the gas shore project road, they build the road to move aggregate sand and so on and so on. And he knows that if he could have access to that riverfront, then he could bring his sand and his stone and sell to Exxon. So he was there to force her off of the land. Ravi Dev knows exactly what he's talking about since then. That this entire plan, this cake, I say again, because you cut cake into pieces, segments. The cake is the land in Guyana. And back then, before he gave that speech, he said that there was 1.6 million acres already in the hands of Hindus, not just Indian people, because he was at the Hindu forum. So he didn't say it was given to Muslims. So now there's an expectation in Irfan Ali's backyard that you're Muslim, so you now have to take care of us. And I'm hearing that in circles, that Irfan Ali, Jagdeo, and them give away the land and take care of the Hindu people. Now you must take care of us. And there is an infighting now as I speak to you, of which I'm well aware, that Irfan must now represent the interests of Muslims because Jagdeo took care of Hindus. So with that being said, what land is left for any other cultural group? Let me say to you that when you drive down the highway nowadays, you are seeing, and we're seeing, acre upon acre upon acre of land at the Suez-Linden Highway being cleared. Ever since Granger left on the 2nd of August, land began to be cleared. I had conversations with certain councillors in this town, and I asked them, do you know of the land clearing? Do you know of land being, once they said this land cannot be sold to any private resident? This is NISTL's land for development of a certain sort. Now in Linden, the same land is in the hand of a private individual, not a Muslim. So Ravi Dev's 2014 expression has found its way into 2023. And the cake is being divided right before the eyes of the Christians. I'm not saying Africans here, because he wasn't speaking to an ethnic group alone.
Right.
The Muslims and the Christians, the Baha'is, and any other group who are not Hindus, your cake is unavailable at this time, according to Ravi Dev's notion.
According to Ravi Dev's notion.
That's what
I mean, David,
taking
Yes,
land.
go ahead. Go ahead, Lincoln.
let me just make this point. You know, land, they see this land differently. Land, I've been saying to people, land is ancestral wealth. And that's how they see it. We have so much problem in this country with ancestral land. Yesterday morning, before I left home, I got a call. It's one family whose land is being encroached upon by Ministry of Housing. Ministry of Housing, they decide that they are going to be the guard to themselves, and they are going to determine the land to be state land when people have transport to them. When I got into office, there are two men who came to me with the same problem on the east bank of the Mararo. Immediately after I left, and one man came after to talk. This land situation is serious in this country. You asked me earlier about cultural land. Let me tell you something, brother. I have got today I'm called. Today I was talking to a relative that I was charged some months ago, and I haven't turned up in court over the land at Kingley. And I said I never received a summons. He said, well, you were charged. on such and such a date. I said, oh, you get that? I said, well, nobody's giving the summons, so I don't believe it is so. I raised that to tell you that I have gone to court from 2020 to 2021. I went for 17 months to court. Right? The case was dismissed. They come with another one. All that they're doing is coming to harass you. I will want to say to anybody who have the documentation for their ancestral land, don't go to the government to ask them or to tell them it's your land. Occupy it. The families must occupy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you go to Nandalal or go to things, they are not the court, they're not the authority to determine it. The court determines that. Right? I'm to you that those are the type of things that we have to take seriously.
Yes.
We can't sit back and allow them. We can't sit back and allow them to determine for us whether we get our land or we don't get it. Go and take it.
Yeah. Apostle London, what we have seen here, obviously, from our discussion here tonight, is a big grand plan.
Yes.
And grand plans are not hatched overnight. You know, it's something that is continuous. And Ravi Dev introduced a term recently called memory warrior. He accused me, David Hines, of using history in a selective way. That is, using African history as the only history in the country. He accused me of that. Here, Ravi Dev, my ancestors came here and they continue to worship the land. We do puja to the land.
Mm-hmm.
We are a people of the land.
Yes.
He never talked about the Africans who dug millions of shovels of earth on the land, of Africans who bought land and turned them into civilization. Who is the memory warrior? He's given a history of Guyana of only those who wake up in the morning and do puja to the land.
Right.
What about the blood of Africans from centuries on this plantation that is churned in that land that his people are doing puja to?
Right.
Who is the memory warrior? Go ahead, my brother.
Thank you. And indeed so, because the canals that his ancestors came and benefited from were dug by the Africans. But important to note, and I hope that those who view this broadcast tonight can understand the tone and the relevance of this situation here. This is extremely critical for every Guyanese, not Africans alone, for every Guyanese to understand what was at play in 2014,
yes,
what the APNU AFC inherited in reference to that kind of utterance, and what you're definitely seeing now. Because Ravi Dev said he took the fellow to Enmore, and the man told him, this is your land. This is your land. Guyana is your land, and you have to take it. So the Hindus now, according to Ravi Dev's history, I find it strange you can accuse you of anything of that nature.
Yes.
He's citing history to listen. All of Guyana belongs to Hindus because they worship the land, and therefore it is theirs.
Yes.
So if you believe in Yahweh, Yeshua, Jesus, and whatever, Muhammad, Guyana is not your own, according to Ravi Dev. This man should be tried in a court of law, and I expect him to be found guilty of what I believe is almost treasonous to other people, because his recollection of history is so dangerous that it presents almost a Ku Klux Klan and a Nazi ideology. Then listen, forget what actually existed in history. Let us focus on what we say. This land, Guyana, belongs to Hindu people because history said that this is our land. Forget about what the slaves did.
That's right.
Forget about the Africans, forget about the princes who came, the rulers who came, Forget about the wise men who came. Forget about those who had to teach the white man.
Yes.
Drainage and irrigation. Let's not play with this tonight. Slaves didn't got dick canals. They understood drainage and all so many things from the Nile. And from interaction with cultures. Ravi Dev is saying to us, forget that. The only history we know now is that Hindus own the land.
That's right.
That's
right. Lincoln Lewis,
Yes.
We watch Ravi Dev and Betoram Ramarak and others sat on program after program, and they talk about the silencing of what they call the Wisma massacre. That the people at Wisma only remember Son Chapman. They didn't remember this massacre. Here is a man standing in front of the world in India, and he talks about a Guyana, no Amerindian, no African. He talks about the Chinese, but Africans are silenced. Nowhere in that address this man mentioned anything about Black people or Amerindian people. Who is silencing? That man has silenced an entire history, not only after the Middle Passage, but before the Middle Passage. Lincoln Lewis.
Let me start by taking on what some has referred to as the massacre, the Linden massacre. You know, I've lived there. I remember the year it occurred. In fact, I had families who died in that Son Chapman. I can't remember, or no, if you ask them to bring the names of the people who were killed after the Son Chapman, it is difficult for you to find out where this massacre existed. They say one thing often enough for the world to believe. Let them bring the evidence of all these people who were killed. Let us go back to the official report post Son Chapman. Let us go back to that and see what has happened. But let me come to you about the point is that he has made his position very clear. What his intention is. We have to respond to it. We cannot respond in a way where he can be held accountable for any racial prejudices or race this or race that. The system will not work for us. It will work, in this case, it will work for the person who is accused. Same as with the young lady and the minister, the system works for the accused and not the accuser, not the person who has been somewhat traumatized, who have been accused, who have suffered battery or what have you. The system didn't work for she. The system worked for the man who's accused of it. And in this case, the system will work for Ravi Dev, not for us. We got to learn from these experiences. We have to learn from these experiences and do a few things. We have to hold hands in this process. We have to fight back differently. Same way as how the Chinese look forward for China to work with them, and they look forward for India not only to work for them, but India to help them to dominate and own the sizable portion of this country. We must look for synergies in the African continent, and let us work with them to help us to come out of this moral. We have to begin to take the position that we are Africans. I'm not saying to you at any point that we must go there and attack any race. We must not attack any race, but we must build the capacity of our community to respond to the challenges, and not only challenges in the form where people will try to deny us what is justly ours, and more so to discriminate against us in the public space. We have let us learn this.
Yes, and you noted, brother Nigel, that the man was very, very clear that in the fight between India and China, you need resources. Come to Guyana and take Guyanese resources back to India to aid it in its fight against China. These are people, you don't understand their attitude to Exxon or lack of eating. They're not going to fight Exxon.
No.
Not only because Exxon put them in power, but you hear it there from Ravi. They want Indian business people to come in and do what Exxon is doing. And this is part of the Indian manifest destiny according to him. Serious stuff, my brother. Your closing thoughts on anything I didn't post to you and that you wanted to see.
I'm so grateful that you've chosen that aspect to discuss at the end, because Ravi Dev is not speaking to building Guyana.
No.
One, he's speaking to owning Guyana.
Yes.
So that the Hindus must own Guyana.
Yes.
So that the Hindus who own Guyana can develop power in India.
Yes.
Guyanese, pay attention, please. I don't mind if you're Indian or whatever you are. Just hear what I'm saying to you. Ravi Dev is of the view that the Hindus must own this country, use our resources, extract them and use them to their full potential, not to benefit you, the Guyanese people, not to benefit Muslims, but to benefit India. For in his view, he's saying there that even India in itself, the Hindus are superior. But I want to drop one thing in here, which may be a curveball for Ravi Dev and those who are listening. Ravi seemed to have forgotten that they're Africans who are also Hindus.
Aye. Aye, aye, aye.
So by right, if there's any guru of any sort who's African that says, I am Hindu, this land is mine, let's see how that card is going to play. Because Hinduism, Ravi Dev, I know that you're very ignorant and you speak as if you're a most asinine creature. Hinduism is not an ethnicity. It's a belief system that has found its way. Even Africans have practiced it. So what do you say to the African man who is Hindu? Is he superior to the Muslim who's not? I thank you, Dr. Hines. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. As always, it's a pleasure to sit here with you all. And to those who deem us to be racist, thank you for having the opportunity to hear that those who you claim to be racist are speaking against a divisive man. And we're saying that Guyana does not belong to Hindus. Guyana belongs to Guyanese, and every ethnic group in this country must be treated equally. But more importantly, we must assess the ones who suffered the most historically. And that group deserves reparation. And that happens to be us. So you could try like Ravi Dev to change history, but the records of history cannot ever be changed just by the click of a finger. Because when we know it, what you write doesn't bother us anymore. Again, I say thank you, and I'm grateful.
Thank you, my brother, as always. Brother Lincoln, your closing thoughts.
Let me start by saying that I cannot leave this program without highlighting the plight of the ordinary man, which includes the Muslims at the lower rung of the economic ladder, the Muslims and Hindus who are at the lower rung of the economic ladder, together with the African man. The few people that cabal that is used that as opportunity to all the tax-free concessions that Ravi Dev spoke about. I'm not talking for them. I'm talking for the other group, as I mentioned earlier. We need to see the monies that we are getting from the oil and gas at this time not be used or be distributed among that group, that family, those few families. We want to see that money being distributed across the board, improving our NIS pension, public assistance, preparing the public hospitals and clinics that people can to the point where the services can respond to the demands of the society or for the ordinary man. We want to see free education from nursery to university. We want that money to be used for that. I hope that Ravi Dev and others will realize that bringing the business people from India will not resolve the problems that confront the Guyanese masses.
Brother Lincoln Lewis.
I want to say thanks for inviting me. Thanks to the viewers, and thanks to the brothers and sisters out there. We have to hold hands and we got to fight back. We have to talk first. We want the money that we get in, and secondly, we're going to talk about the oil contract sometime. But we're going to talk right now about the money that we get in, and it's not coming to our people, not coming to the small man. We need that. Thank you.
Brother Lincoln Lewis and Brother Nigel London, Apostle London, thank you all so much for coming through on Politics 101 again. Thank you. And to you, our audience, who requested this program, I want to say thanks to you all. And I want to say the consciousness that we are trying to build among Africans is becoming manifest. We now know the definition of racism and racial supremacy. You never would hear that from me or the brothers on this program tonight, or African leaders. We are not supremacists. You now know where we stand in the grand plan of those who hold the power in Guyana today. Make no mistake, Ravi Dev is the ideologue, one of the ideologues of those who are practicing power. That is why Ravi Dev is saying to us Black people, saying to our Black leaders, try to get some crossover votes. He's not saying to the Black leaders, get land for your people. Spread African culture. Oh, no. He's saying to us, try to get some crossover votes. He's saying to us, don't worry with that African thing. While behind the scenes, they're doing the complete opposite. I want to say this is not about Dev, the person. I still hold him in high regard, and I mean it seriously. Because for me, politics is not about the person, but it's the politics that the person represents. That is what is on trial here. Not Dev, the individual. You know, I'm sure he's a good man. I've worked with him, exchanged ideas with him over the years. But it's politics as manifested in that speech. We're going to continue to cover this issue. We're going to bring more Africans on here. to interrogate, as we say in the academy, Mr. Dev's ideas. Come to Guyana, take Guyanese resources, take it back to India to aid the Indian fight against other powers of the world. That's serious. That's serious. Come to Guyana, and all the benefits that we Guyanese of all ethnic groups have fought for, come and enjoy them. And you have a right to enjoy them because your superior culture has taken root in Guyana. We come back tomorrow night. And we come back every night because we got work to do. I so love you all because we are getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. Tomorrow we bury Sister Clementine, I want to get the first name right, Sister Marshall. Tonight there's a wake at Agda, those of you who are in Georgetown, and tomorrow is the funeral. A warrior warrior, queen warrior. She has gone back to the ancestors. But where she has left the void, we've got to pick it up. We've got to pick it up. I know what she would have thought of that Ravi Dev address. We love you, Sister Marshall. We love you. Tomorrow night, we come again to fight the good fight with all our might. The Lion of Judah shall break every chain and give us the victory again and again. Good night. Quiet.